Hi, and welcome to another of Miss Amen's video lecture series on skill building. Today's episode is on becoming a better listener. Do you find yourself hearing people say things like, "You're not listening to me," or "Did you hear a word I said?" When people are speaking to you, do you feel anxious and want to interrupt them before they're finished speaking?
Never!
Has anyone ever said to you, "Stop interrupting me"? If you can answer yes to one or more of these, then you're experiencing a common problem many people have in this day and age. It's called, drumroll please, poor listening. It's contagious, I'm afraid, but not life-threatening, and you'll be happy to know there's a cure for it. But like all good cures, you have to remember to follow the doctor's orders and develop a set of healthy habits if you wish to gain the benefits of productive communication. So let's take a look at that cure. Oops, wrong cure, sorry. Well, you're still here, and that's a good sign. You're obviously dedicated to learning to become a great communicator. So let's begin with the 5-step treatment, shall we? Step 1. Stop thinking. Yes, you read that right, and you better believe this is the one and only time I will ever tell you it's okay to not think. And there's a good reason for turning off your brain for these types of moments. When you're supposed to be listening to someone, you need to shut down your mind and allow yourself to just hear what they have to say. Most of the times that we're supposed to be listening, we're actually engaged in one of two unhealthy habits. The first habit is tuning the speaker out, especially if they're long-winded, like I can be. The problem with this is that we catch the first part of what they're saying, which is usually less important to their main point, and we completely miss the important parts that they had to say. So let's take a look at an example of this, shall we?
Walk. Are you gonna take him? Okay.
Did you just ask me something?
Yeah, I thought you were gonna take the dogs for a walk.
What are you talking about?
They're barking to go up.
Why?
I just asked you. You just said yes.
No, I didn't. I didn't know what I was saying yes to.
Whatever. I'll just do it myself.
See what I mean about tuning out? The other thing we tend to do is listen to the first few seconds of whatever the other person had to say. Then we start thinking about how we're going to respond. Problem is, we never heard the other person fully. Let me show you a quick example of what I mean.
That would make a difference in her life, and I'd like to convince her that that would be the case, as I did the other constituents. By the way, that did not come from my district. All the shouting that came about did not come from my district, but I wanted them to be there.
Let me explain something to you. Let me explain, because one of the problems is you're not listening, and that was sort of the criticism that you weren't listening, you're on the phone. Now listen
but
to
I disagree with you, Brett. I am listening, but go ahead. I am listening.
Here it is. You say that you're calling to you're saying you're calling a hotline.
I hope you can see from that example just how badly we actually listen to each other. I'm certain that most of us have gone through a very similar scenario. I have, and in a lot of ways I've made the same mistake. It doesn't make it right, but if you notice that both speakers seem to want to talk over the other person, or the other person seemed to be withdrawing and shutting down, if you see that happening, use that as a solid cue that you're not listening and need to take a step back. Step 2. Maintain eye contact. This is really important for 3 main reasons. 1. Whatever you're looking at, you're usually focused on. It'll help you to keep from tuning out of the conversation. 2. It's a clear signal to the speaker that says silently that you're listening and interested in what they have to say. 3. You can watch for key body language that tells you how well the conversation is progressing or not progressing. Now, this doesn't mean to stare deeply into their eyes the whole time. That's just creepy, and a surefire way to shut down a conversation with the quickness. Luckily, there's a trick to this. Just scan their face. Start with the forehead, then the eyes or the tip of the nose, then chin, then whole body. Rinse, wash, repeat. Think of it like driving a car. You need to keep your main focus on the road in front of you, but periodically you need to check the rear view mirror, then your side mirror to get a full awareness of the road. Same thing with conversations. While keeping your eyes mainly on their face is a way of keeping focused, the quick body scan gives you subtle clues about if the person's anxious or wants to get out of the conversation, or if they're deeply engaged and wants to continue the conversation. Step 3. Paraphrase the speaker. One way to ensure you're actually listening and not tuning out is to test your understanding. You can do this by simply paraphrasing what you think you heard the other person say. This has the added benefit of showing to the speaker that you care about what they have to say, which ensures that hostility won't enter the conversation. You want to start with I summary statements, a statement that starts with I. So let me give you a few examples of what I mean by this. First example. So let me make sure I understand. What I think you're saying is, not sure if I caught all that, but what I think you just said was, or C, am I getting this straight? And then paraphrase the information. You want to avoid you statements. This puts the speaker on the defensive. So don't say things like, you just said, or so what you're saying is, or you think that whatever the person you think thinks. The problem with those second starts is they all start with the other person as the focus. Studies show that when people make you statements, the other person is automatically put on the defensive. It just has this kind of hostile, confrontational sound to it, even if you meant it in a nice way. So remember, always start your paraphrasing with an I statement to keep the conversation safe and respectful. Step 4. Check in periodically. While engaged in a conversation, it's good practice and a way for you to test the other person to see if they're actually listening to you. So the first thing you want to start doing is ask them questions about something they said periodically. It aids both in your understanding, plus gives you a little deeper insight into what they're saying without always having to paraphrase. So, for example, the other person starts talking about how they like to ski. You don't ski, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't exit the conversation or tune out. Ask them about where their favorite place to ski is and why. People like to talk about what they know, and asking them questions gives them license to keep talking, which wins you points with them. Second, give them a compliment about something they said, even if you don't totally agree 100% with all their points. For example, let's say someone you're talking with is discussing why some restaurant is the best place to eat. You don't agree that the restaurant is the best, but when they start talking about how that restaurant makes a killer grilled sirloin, and you agree with it, then say it. Something like, oh man, you're so right, they do make a great steak. People love to know that others think they're right, special, and want others to agree with them. So occasionally throwing out genuine compliments empowers them and reminds them that you're worth talking to. A few words of caution. 1. Never, ever, ever give a compliment you don't mean. You'd be surprised at how well people recognize that, and it immediately signals to the other person that you're trying to humiliate them or pull something over on them. You'll lose friends, integrity, and jobs or sales doing this. So I'm going to revise a very old rule. If you don't have something genuinely nice to say, don't say it at all, period. Let me repeat that. If you don't have something genuinely nice to say, don't say it at all. If you give a compliment to the other person, pay close attention to how that compliment is received. How they react can reveal a person's character. They might pull inwards and seem uncomfortable. Perhaps they're humble. They might say thanks. Those are all cues. If they keep talking and don't react, you have a sign telling you that the person you're talking with isn't listening to you. Worth knowing. That might not be the person to bring your problems to in the future. Now for the advanced stage. Step 5. Body language speaks volumes. If you've mastered all the other steps, then you're obviously becoming a great listener. But a master listener has a last trick up his or her sleeve. Maintaining similar body language. What I mean by this is to mirror the other person's tone and stance. For example, if the speaker is loud-spoken, standing up, chest puffed out, then follow suit. Or if they're sitting down and crossing their legs, cross your arms. Now, that doesn't give you license to become a parrot. That's just rude, and it will signal that you're disingenuous to the speaker. But let's go back to our first example, the loud, boisterous fellow. If they come up to you and start speaking with you, and you're sitting down, stand up. Get a little more straight, and when you open your mouth, it better be more like a lion and not a mouse. Don't worry, they won't notice, but it will make them feel more comfortable around you and help the conversation to develop a little further. Same thing goes for if the person you're speaking with is sitting down and seems to be curling into themselves, or maybe they're leaning into you. That's a sign for you to lean in a little, get a little softer voice, and speak with them on their terms. Sit down and join them in the conversation. Well, I hope these 5 steps will help you to become a better listener, and I hope you use them in your future endeavors.